Welcome to today's webinar. You guys are awesome. I'm coming to you from California. I've been on a trip out here, and I'm using actually Jake, one of our guests' office. So thank you, Jake, for that. And I'm here in California, and I'm excited to get this webinar kicked off. While we have a good group showing up already, and while we're waiting for some more to show up, I just wanted to kind of talk about a couple of things while this group's showing up. Then I'll introduce our guests and we'll move on. But, you know, it has never been a better time to be an author. It is an amazing time. We've never had as many options that we have now to get our works published. We have many more opportunities ever than in the history of the world to publish any kind of creative work. And it's a very exciting time to do this. And I'm just so excited about it. I'm so pumped that you guys are here, that you're writers or want to become writers, you're an aspiring author, wherever you are in the process. I hope that today just gives you a little bit more information, a little bit more motivation for you to go out and keep writing books, because that's what it's about. We want you to write more. Here at PublishDrive, we want you to write more, and we want you to worry less. And we're providing all of these tools for you. And so if you haven't been to PublishDrive, if you're new to PublishDrive, go check it out. It's at PublishDrive.com and see everything that we have to offer. It's just a full suite of amazing tools for you. Recently, I just wanted to, while we're still, people are still showing up. Recently, it was a couple weeks ago, we just released a really cool feature. If you guys are into co-authoring, if you want to work with a team, if you're into building up these worlds or whatever it is, if you have more than one contributor, basically, more than one author or contributor to a book, you can now split your royalties through PublishDrive. This in the past has been a very big, huge headache, and it's been a super pain in the butt because typically only one person in the past had to sign up on the platform and then basically run a report at the end of each pay period and then manually send these things out. It's been such a huge pain for, I know, all of you guys who are into who are doing these, you know, co-authoring kind of things, these anthologies, whatever. At PublishDrive, we've made it easy now. All you have to do is you have a team lead, one person who goes into the platform, signs up, and then everybody can contribute to that, gets invited into this per book, and now we easily share those royalties for you. So we're super excited about it. And I know for you people who do co-authoring or any kind of co-contributing to any kind of book or project, you're going to love this. It's making your lives so much easier. You get to choose the percentage that everyone has. Everyone has to agree to the terms, and then it goes live, and it's super simple and easy. So check it out. That's, like I said, guys, it's at PublishDrive.com. All right, let's get started here. Okay, I want to introduce you to our guests. Today's webinar is about how indie authors can sell more books through public speaking. And I have invited two amazing guests. So the first guest is Jake Ballentine. What's up? Hey. I'm in his office, so we said, let's share a screen. So here, let's turn it like that. All right. So Jake is an amazing speaker. Now, full disclosure here, I've known Jake for a very long time. I've met him since he was a teenager. I'm a few years older than him, but I met him when he's a teenager because I was dating his cousin, and then I ended up marrying his cousin. So now we're cousin-in-laws.
Yeah, we're cousins.
So
when was that? How many years?
This was in 2001. So it's been a
long time.
Sorry, Michelle. 2002 is when I married Michelle.
But if I met you in 2001.
Yeah, but I met Jake.
Yeah, 18 years.
Yeah, so it's been a long time, and I've watched Jake's career like soar. Started out as just this college kid, wanted to start speaking, wrote books, and now, I mean, his career is amazing. So Jake is, he's a speaker, he's an author, he's written a few books. He is the founder of something called the Speakers, Authors, Coaches Network. You could find their Facebook group, literally if you Google Speakers, Authors, Coaches Network. And it is one of the coolest groups. It's a very fast growing group. And the content that gets put on there for authors, for speakers, for coaches, if any of that applies to you on this webinar, you want to be part of this group. It is an amazing group. And it's because of Jake that I personally got into speaking. I wrote a book, a children's book several years ago for my kids, and I showed Jake the book, and he said, man, I think you should speak about this, create a keynote about it. And so I did, and it spurred a whole speaking career. And this is a fiction book. Oftentimes speakers are nonfiction writers. And this is a fiction book that I have created a whole keynote about and sparked a speaking career about. And so, in fact, and we'll talk about this throughout the presentation of how you can monetize that, how you can try to sell those books, because my speaking gigs are one of my best selling tools. I sell out of books every single time, and that's why I wanted to do this panel. All right, so our next guest is a guy named Joe Fingerhut. Joe, turn on your there he is. Joe's a super awesome guy. I met Joe not that long ago. This was just in January. I was at the Speakers, Authors, Coaches Summit, and Joe was there, and he presented, and this guy is amazing. And Joe and I got to hang out a ton during these several days that we were there. And now we're like besties. I mean, it's awesome. But Joe is amazing. He's a speaker. He's an author. He is a very popular in the youth market and is growing a big business even in the corporate world now. He's an entertainer. This dude's a juggler. He speaks Japanese. There's not anything he can't do, right? Joe, you're muted. We can't hear you.
How about konnichiwa? I'm fluent.
There we go.
There we go.
We got you.
Sorry.
Konnichiwa, brother. All right, hold on. We're getting adjusted here. Okay, so Joe, Jake, thank you guys for coming. You guys are amazing. You guys can follow them throughout social media, Joe Fingerhut, Jake Ballentine, and also please join the Speakers, Authors, Coaches Network. There is so much amazing information there. If you're wanting to become a speaker, if you're a coach, and if you're an author, it is just amazing stuff that pops up there. So I encourage you to check it out. So today's agenda, so it's pretty simple. We're going to do a Q&A kind of panel. I'm going to moderate it by me. I'm going to be asking these guys a bunch of questions. But afterwards, we're going to do a live Q&A. So use the chat feature, the chat box, and go ahead and ask your questions. If we don't cover anything, or if you want more to go in depth in something, whatever it might be, we're going to cover that stuff. And then we'll get all of those questions answered. I like to keep these brief. If any of you have been on these, we're going to go 20, 25 minutes into some just meat and potatoes of all of this. And then we'll have those live Q&A. And then we want to get you out of here. And then we want you to go write books, sell more, become speakers, become coaches, whatever you're doing in your world. Also, after the webinar, either today or tomorrow morning, you're going to receive a recording of this. And you're also going to receive, again, you should have had the opportunity when you registered to download the three secrets to booking paid gigs. And this was done by Jake. Jake did all of this. I just wrote it down. That's all I did. Jake did a webinar on this, and it was one of the best videos I've ever seen if you want to book speaking gigs. And now I want authors to really look into this, because it's such a great selling tool if you can speak at different functions, whether you're at author conferences or something else. It is a fantastic way to sell books. So here we go. Let's get started. So anyways, you guys, after the webinar, you guys are going to get this recording, and you're going to get, I'm going to attach again that checklist, this 3 secrets to booking paid speaking gigs. You'll have information also on Jake and Joe if you guys want to follow them or reach out to them for anything. So that'll all be included. And then we'll have even past links or links to other webinars that we've done in the past that are helpful for the author experience, especially if you're new to this thing, that all also connect to that. So look forward to that. That's either today or probably tomorrow or sometime today. Just kind of depends. So let's get started. All right. I want to get a little bit more in-depth background about you guys. So Joe, let's start with you. How did this whole speaking career start? What happened? Give us the backstory.
All right, so I am from St. Louis, born and raised here. I wanted to explore life outside of St. Louis, so I went to school in Chicago, Loyola University, Chicago, Final Four, 2018. After college, I wanted to explore life outside of America. So I learned, got some information on how to travel cheaply as a student. So started on this adventure, backpacking through Europe, teaching English in Japan. And in the 8 years after college, I went to 30 countries on 6 continents. Then I came back home to St. Louis and started my career in entertainment. My wife and I got married. I was like, the DJ at our wedding was awesome. That looks like a fun job. So I started DJing. After that, I was like, I got to get a job because people don't get married during the week. So I found this ad in the newspaper. It said, after school magic instructor wanted, 1 to 4 hours a week. We teach you the tricks. I was like, that sounds like fun. So I called them, said, how can I do this? Started doing magic, I continued juggling. I learned how to juggle in high school and taught myself how to ride a unicycle while in Japan. So started performing. I was living my dream and I was like, this is awesome, but I want to do more than entertain. I want to have an impact. So I thought back to when I was 20 at college, this speaker came to my school and I was like, you can do that as a career. So this job had been in my mind for like 12 years and now I was ready. So I just started going after it, connecting, reaching out, networking with people like Jake and programs like the ones that Jake has started and learning how to do it and putting together a message, reaching out and just being like, I'm a speaker. How can I speak to you at schools and conferences? And then along the way, I wrote my book, Permission to Play. And I do a lot of my speaking at schools and teen leadership conferences. And as you mentioned, I'm transitioning now to corporate events. I'm doing professional development workshops and educator sessions and just having a blast.
Sweet. Okay, Jake, give us your background here. How this all, I know the story. Tell the folks the story.
It's so interesting. So listening to Joe talk, there's not just a linear line of this is exactly what happened. It usually has some paths along the way. So for me, I was a musician and I wanted to be a full-time musician. I wanted to make a living using music to promote a positive message. And so I got into playing music as a career. And really what that ended up being was I was playing in bars and playing in clubs and I was basically entertaining drunk people. And I didn't feel like that was promoting the positive message that I wanted to promote. So I decided after a couple of years of doing that I was going to hang it up and it was just going to be a hobby and I was going to go back to school. And I went and got my degree in psychology and I was going to go and become a counselor. During that time, I just had this idea. What if I started, just like Joe in the youth market, I said, well, what if I started mixing music and motivational speaking and doing school assemblies? I had no clue that it was a career. I didn't know it was a career option. I didn't know that people got paid for this. I just didn't know. And I started doing it. At the beginning, I just thought it was going to be a hobby. It was something I was going to do for fun. As I got involved in it, I learned that there was this whole business around it. There was this whole career around it. And at that moment, I made a full-on decision. I made a decision right then and there when I figured out that this was a career, that this was for me. This is what I wanted to do. It didn't look exactly the way I intended, but I was going to be able to use music to promote a positive message. Instead of being at concerts, it was going to be at high schools and middle schools doing assembly programs and working with youth leadership programs. And so I dove all in, and it really only took me less than a year, and it turned into my full-time income. Started touring all over the nation. I've been hired to speak in 43 states, done hundreds of speaking engagements nationwide. Since then, I've focused more on
here.
What's that, Joe? Yeah, we hear you, Joe. I know you went out there for a little bit, but it's okay. Go ahead, Jake. Continue.
Since then, after several years of doing that, really
Jake and Woody.
He's not sure if we can hear him or not.
I think Jake's connection went out, or Joe's connection went out a little.
Okay. So
Joe, we can hear you.
Just to finish up here. So then did that exclusively for 5 years. And then after so many people asking me, hey, how are you doing this? How are you making a living going out and speaking? I branched out to youth conferences, and then I started speaking at corporate events. And now I speak at a lot of seminars and those kind of events. But after people asking me, how are you doing this? That's when I started the Speakers, Authors, and Coaches Network. And now I run seminars for speakers, for authors, for coaches, for people who want to make a living sharing a positive message. We have now 5,000 members worldwide. We have about 90 countries represented. We do live events. We do coaching programs and all those different kinds of things to give people the tools that they need so that they can promote their positive message.
Yeah, and it's like, thanks, Jake and Joe. We'll wait for, I'm sure Joe, there he is. Joe's back. will. It is a really great group. It's one of my favorite groups. I try to participate in that group as much as possible, especially when it comes to the publishing questions. And you know, I jump in there and try to answer a lot of those questions for people. But it's a great group, great information. Okay, so both of you have written books or multiple books. Why did you guys decide to write books? What was the statement? So Joe, we'll start with you. Why did you decide to write that book?
Well, from the start, I knew that the general path for a speaker is, I mean, a great move is to have a book, because that just duplicates your presence, duplicates your message. You can get up in front of people and impact an audience for 45 minutes, and it can be incredible. Like, oh my gosh, I'm on fire. But we all know that feeling leaves after an hour, after a day, after 2 days, 3 days. And you might share 3 or 4 stories or one idea. But then if you have a book that's in the back of the room that a person can pick up, that allows you to stay in their life and that message to stay in their life for a long time. So that idea was always in my mind. And then once I got over the doubt of whether I could build a speaking career and the actual speaking was built, it was like, okay, now I need to focus on my book, because that's going to boost credibility. It's going to boost profits. But most importantly, it's just going to boost impact. It's going to be able to be like, my message is going to continue.
Yeah, that's a great point that you make. You said something here that I liked, because you said for a lot of speakers, the natural progression then would be to write a book because of those things that you just listed. It lists credibility, whatever it is, impact of your message, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the reverse is also available for you guys who are authors and want to
Right.
message. That's where I started out, right? I'm a writer. I started out as an author, and I go, I could speak a little bit, right? Jake's like, hey, you should do something. And so I started testing the waters, and it has become one of my best-selling tools for my books, is because when people hear you speak and when you move an audience, they want something physical and tangible that they can relate back to their experience with you. And that book is a perfect example of that. Now, because and here's a little pro tip. So in the publishing world, you guys all know that it's hard to make a good living, or no, excuse me, it's hard to make a good profit in hardcover books. It's great in ebooks, and it's pretty good in paperback. Audio's great, but when it comes to hardcover books, it's hard to make because they're so expensive to create in a print-on-demand world that it could be a little tricky. So what I like to do at my speaking gigs is sell only my hardcovers at speaking gigs, because I could get them printed for whatever the cost is, charge them whatever, $15 because they get a signature, a picture with me, whatever it is. And it's a good way to sell those hardcover books for me, I find, and it's a great way to actually be able to make a profit on those hardcovers. So, and that doesn't mean you have to sell hardcovers. I'm just saying, because I write a lot of children's and young adult, that the children's books tend to sell better when they're in hardcover. And so at a speaking gig, it's a great way to do that. And so for you authors out there who, trying to formulate these ways to sell more books, start to develop ideas of how you can become a speaker. Now, Jake, you've written a few books. Tell us what you've written, and then the idea behind that.
So I've written 2 books. First book was called How to Be a Rockstar Student Leader, and that was exclusively for student leaders. And then the second one is Your Number One Goal. But I wanted to talk about that first one because I think it's an interesting idea and what I did, my reason for writing that book. I wanted to speak. I was speaking at youth leadership events, and I wanted to speak at more of them. And so I wrote this book that was basically, I wrote it for the purpose of being able to send something physical to people who could book me, which is a great tool to be able to get hired as a speaker. That really sets you apart. Sure, you can send an email. Yeah, you can send a phone call. You can send a postcard. People are going to throw away that postcard. People are going to delete the message. You send someone a book, they're not going to throw it away. They're going to put it on their bookshelf. And so that's how it started. I wrote the book just for that purpose. And then the other purpose of it was, you were talking about selling books at events, which is great to be able to sell a book at an event. But what's even better than selling a book at an event is selling a book before you go to the event and getting them to buy a set for all of the attendees. And so when I speak to, with this book, when I speak to youth leadership events, there's 2 different options. They can just pay for me to come and speak, or they could pay for me to come and speak and a book for everyone who's there. And they take it. Not everyone does, but some people do. And some people, just this week, so I don't even speak that often in the youth market anymore. But one of my former clients contacted me this past week and said, hey, we want a set for all of our leadership students for our school. And so they just bought 60 books, and it wasn't through, they sent me money. I'm shipping them the books. And so I'm not even showing up. I'm not even being there.
Love it.
So really what's great about the speaking world is if your book is relevant to that audience, they may decide that they want to buy a whole set for the people who are there, or a set for, and these are people that they realize they can't afford to bring me back, but they said, hey, we want your book for our classroom set, so they want it there. Also, sometimes organizations are interesting. They have different budget lines for different things. So sometimes they don't have a budget for a speaker, and sometimes they can't do anything about that. There's bureaucracy. They don't have those choices, but they might have a curriculum budget, or they might have materials budget, or things like that. So you can get creative. I've had times where people have said, I don't have the budget. And I said, well, do you have any kind of a curriculum budget? And they said, yes, we do. So then instead of paying my fee, they bought X amount of books that really was the same amount as what my fee would have been. And so a book can be a great tool for getting creative, for people to be able to pay you. It can be a great tool for marketing. You can send out physical copies. I do that on my own dime. I send out physical copies to people who might be able to book me. And then also you can sell them at the event, but you can even sell them before the event. And then everyone just gets a copy. You bring them there. You seem like a rock star because you're handing them out, and everyone's getting a signed copy, and it's a really cool experience.
So that's awesome. Great. Thank you both. I talk about this a lot. I've made videos about this, but because I get asked a lot. People ask me all the time, hey, should I write a book? And as a writer, I mean, that question just is weird to me, because I'm like, of course, why wouldn't you write a book? But for people who don't come from, writers who aren't writers, or who don't have that background, it makes a lot of sense. And we've hit on all of the points that I usually make with that. Is it's instant credibility, like just having something in print and digital formats, audiobooks, whatever, is huge credibility on whatever you're speaking to, regardless if you're writing fiction or nonfiction. It is instant credibility. But it also is a great way to make money. I mean, all you authors know out there that selling books isn't the easiest thing in the world to do, but it is an avenue, because it opens up opportunity for you that normally you might not have had you not written that book. So for example, Jake just hit that a big time, and Joe, is that, well, I see opportunities opened up for him because he had the book. He could do pre-sales. He's now, instead of having him come speak, they're just buying a bunch of copies of his book. So it's just another way for you to make money. And so it's an amazing thing. And you guys both talked about this. It's just a great way to continue to move and influence and help an audience. Whatever your message is, you can do that. And regardless of whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. Now, I write mainly fiction, and I'm a speaker. And like I said, a lot of people write nonfiction, and that's completely fine, and it's normal. But I've found a way writing fiction to do this. And so it's really cool. All right. So we talked about previously that, if you haven't done so already, you'll be able to download 3 secrets to getting paid speaking gigs. Now, Jake wrote this. And so I just wanted to cover those 3 steps really quick, just so you guys can get an idea. Now, the first step is amazing, because Joe and Jake are the epitome of this. Like Jake did a video or a webinar on this, and he basically said, secret number 1 is that you don't have to have a crazy story. You don't have to, be famous. You don't have to be a rock star. If you are those things, it helps, but you don't have to be those things, right? You don't have to have a crazy story to have almost died. But if you have done those things and you want to write about it, I mean, obviously that helps. You don't have to, Mount Everest? You don't have to climb Mount Everest.
Gold medal, Super Bowl ring,
exactly.
All those kinds of things.
So Jake, go ahead and explain that a little bit more.
So when it comes down to, you don't need to have those things that I thought you used to have. In high school, I thought, hey, it'd be cool to be a motivational speaker, because this speaker came to my school, and but he was a recovered gang member and drug dealer and stuff. So I thought that's what I would have needed to do. So I used to joke that my career path, you know, when I was a high school senior and they said, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, okay, I'm going to become a drug dealer. I'm going to go to jail. Then I'm going to get out of jail, and then I'm going to be a motivational speaker because I thought that was the path. But you don't need that. All you really need to do is to be able to one of two things, and ideally both, either solve a problem or fill a need. And so what I mean by solve a problem is if a organization, whatever kind of organization who's booking a speaker, if you can solve a problem for them through your keynote, they will hire you to be there. The other thing is if you're filling a need, like if it's a speaker series, they already have, they're already planning on having speakers, and you can learn what it is they're looking for. You can fill that need. They're having a speaker for whatever type of topic it is. So you have to either be able to fill a need that people are already looking for. What I say often is, if they're planning on having a speaker, I'm just looking for people who are already planning on having a speaker, and I just say it might as well be me. They're already planning to have someone, so it might as well be me. So fill a need or solve a problem. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to have a crazy story.
Thank you very much. The second thing that Jake talked about in this video, and what you'll see in this checklist, is that you just need to create some marketing materials. There's a few things that you have to be seen as a credible speaker. We're not going to be able to mention all of them. One of them, though, is very simple things. Having a website. Like, you got to have a website. And then you got to have something that's called the demo video. Jake, talk to that. Joe, how important is the demo video to this?
So two things, demo video and website. You don't exist. It's like asking somebody to mail you a letter. What's going to be their first question? What's your I'm a speaker. What's your address? Like, I want to see, and even sometimes even a website isn't even enough. Like, you can have a website, but you gotta have that website for credibility. They have to see you. They have to visualize, what is this going to look like in front of the audience that I am planning for? Can this person put together a sentence? Do they have charisma? Are they connecting with the audience? And then do they have a good message?
Yes, that's amazing. So Jake basically in his video, but in that checklist, you'll see he basically, I just give a quick description of what you need in your website. Jake says you got to have testimonials. Your demo video needs to be up on there, and then maybe a short message about what you speak to, like who's your audience is, what you talk about, that kind of stuff.
Let me say something about the demo video. I've heard a lot of people say things like, I'll invest in a demo video after I start getting some gigs, and then I'll make some money and then do that. It doesn't work that way. This is non-negotiable. Your demo video is the #1 most important piece of marketing that you have. And so do whatever it takes to get that demo video. Joe and I, we started around the same time. We met each other in a program that we were both taking to learn how to do all this stuff. And we used to just talk on the phone and talk, help each other out and things like that. And at the beginning, what did both of us do? We did whatever it took to get speaking engagements at the beginning, whether it's people we knew or, one time just so I could get one testimonial, because I was looking for a testimonial within one of these organizations. I flew to Texas for free to speak to an audience.
Meaning he didn't get it for free, he paid.
I flew to Texas. Yeah, I flew to Texas, not being paid. I paid my own way there. And why did I do this? I did this for one video testimonial. Just so one person said, we just had Jake speak to our people and we loved it. And it was absolutely worth it. I did whatever I could to get it. And then at the beginning, all you're doing is just trying to get the next level of video, a little bit better, a little bit better. And every time you update your demo video, you're going to increase your fees. You're going to get more speaking engagements. Every time you update your demo video, your credibility as a speaker, unless you have a gold medal, unless you have a Super Bowl ring, unless you climb Mount Everest, and even then you still need something to show them that you can do what you're talking about. But unless you're famous, your demo video is your credibility as a speaker. And without it, unless someone has a personal connection to you, you will not get hired to speak.
It's so important. And your demo videos, it's basically shots of you speaking, little clips of you speaking, testimonials throughout it. It's just to prove to people that this guy can put 2 sentences, or girl can put 2 sentences together, and that they have a relevant message, and it builds credibility. So you got to have it. So the next secret that Jake talks about as well in that checklist that you guys will see is very important. It's the most important step besides having those marketing materials like a demo video, and because it's that you got to ask for the sale. Like you got to ask, you just got to reach out to people and ask them to book gigs. So give us an idea of what you guys do to book some of these speaking gigs. Now for you authors out there or you coaches or whatever, this applies to whatever you're doing. Whether you want to have a book signing or you're on a panelist or you're speaking at an author event, whatever it is, the same idea applies of asking for the sale. So what are some things that you guys do to get booked, these book gigs?
Let's have Joe talk on
ahead,
this,
Joe.
because Joe is a master at this.
Oh, thank you, Jake. Well, we've learned together, and when you're around the best, you learn from the best. Whether you are an author or a speaker or pretty much anything, like you have a target of what you're shooting for. So I wanted to speak. So a lot of times when you hear people, I want to speak, I'll speak on anything, I'll speak to anybody, but like figure out who you want to speak to, figure out who you want to be like. I picked out like 5 or 6 speakers that I saw was doing exactly what I wanted to do, which at the time was speaking to students and speaking at conferences. So I would spreadsheet, nothing fancy, get a spreadsheet, get a laptop and do some research. This guy spoke here on this date. All right, I'm calling that organization. Hey, I see you hired this person. When do you make that decision? Because they can't tell me we don't hire speakers because they hired that person. So I try to tread on a path that's already made because there's no sense reinventing the wheel. And if you're an author, you do the same thing. If you want to write books for this audience, you find out authors that have written for that audience, how did they do it, and then connect with them. I'm sure Jake's gonna trigger some ideas of how we've done it, but you mentioned something, Jake, which was they're hiring speakers, might as well be me. At the beginning, I'm banging my head, I'm cold calling schools. Hey, speaker, I want to speak. But a lot of times it's a needle in a haystack because you don't even know if they have speakers, let alone if you're talking to the right person. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm focusing on a school or a conference that I know has already hired a speaker. And then in my mind, it's just a matter of time. It might not be this year. It might even be next year. But in the next 5 years, I'm going to be your speaker. So I'm going to keep in touch.
That's the thing that Joe has done so well and been such an example to me. Like his mindset is not, how do I book the gig now? His mindset is, okay, I'm just looking for people who are booking speaking engagements. I'm just looking for people who are booking them. And I don't care if they just book someone. It might not be until next year they're booking someone again, and they might have someone else lined up, and it might be 2 years before I'm there. But Joe has had this long-term mindset from the beginning. And what's amazing about having a long-term mindset is if you have a long-term mindset, it really doesn't take that long to see results. You don't see results immediately, that's for sure. You don't see results right now. But it doesn't take that long until the snowball starts going. And then now he's at the point where he's just doing all these events all the time. He's always doing these events because his mindset from the beginning was, I don't need to work hard, I need to work smart about it, and I need to be consistent about it. I need to be consistently contacting these people. So he's been looking for, it's funny because literally every time I do a gig, Joe calls me afterwards and said, hey, who booked you? Can I talk to that person? Because they don't book the same speaker 2 years in a row, very rarely. Occasionally they do. I have some clients who are repeat clients, year after year, but that'll be something like it's a different audience for some reason, it's an orientation, something like that. But very few events will book the same speaker every single year because they want to have variety. So like I have a group of a couple speakers where we really share what we're doing, and like I know that Joe's done gigs that I had done the year before, and I've done gigs that he did the year before. But so really it's figuring out who's booking speaking engagements. You can get creative with this by understanding where you want to speak, who else speaks to those people. The thing is if someone's a speaker, if someone's an author, this is what they do. They want to say, hey, look at me, I just spoke on this stage. So here's a great way to learn where people are speaking. Find people who are doing what you want to do, follow them on Instagram, and every time they say, I just spoke at this place, like Joe said, you have your spreadsheet, take a note, and then now follow up with, you can either build a relationship with that person, but even if you don't have a relationship with that person, you can just see what they're doing and you can just follow the breadcrumbs of what other people are doing. And you can see, okay, this organization hired this speaker, this author, well, I'm kind of like that person. If they hire them, most likely organizations are going to have the same budget year after year. Occasionally that's not true, but 9 times out of 10, they have pretty much the same budget. So if you're looking if you're looking at the level of speaker that you are or you are aspiring to be, look for where they're speaking, and it's really quite simple. And there's something amazing too. Instagram has a backlog. You can just go back and see everything they're doing. You can look at their social media, whatever social media they're using, and you can find places, create a spreadsheet. Go out now and just create a spreadsheet, follow 5 or 10 speakers that you think. Now, I'm not talking about, don't go for the high level stuff. Don't go for people who are out of your level. Go for people who are where you're at or one level above, and just start looking and start creating a spreadsheet of, here are all these places who are hiring people, and then go and build relationships with them. Go talk to them. Say, hey, talk to the event coordinators. Contact them. Hey, I'm just wondering who's in charge of booking your speakers. Oh, it's this person. Great. Can I talk to them? Then you're not asking, hey, book me. You're just saying, when do you book your speakers? What are you looking for in a speaker? You just start learning things and asking things. And when I said the secret is to ask, it's not always ask for the sale. It's ask, are you booking speakers? When do you book speakers? What do you look for in a speaker? What's the budget that you have for speakers? What's the best way to contact you? When should I contact you again? And then being like Joe and just being great at following up. You don't even have to be a great salesperson. People think if I'm going to be a good salesman, I gotta be slick on the phone. No, you just need to follow up. I'll take someone, in terms of someone who's going to be a good salesperson in this world, in the speaking world, I would take someone who's organized over someone who's a slick salesman any day of the week. Follow up.
Just speaking to the whole salesman thing. So I've been in sales and marketing my whole life. And trust me, people generally, all organizations, any company, any business gets hit up by salesmen all the time.
Yep.
And sounding not like a salesman, a salesperson is like 10 times better. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? I'm the person that can solve this need that you're looking for. Okay, so let's move on. Great stuff, guys. You guys rock. All right. Also, everyone, please, if there's any questions that you have, please enter them in to the questions field on your control panel there. I look periodically just so I know I could kind of gauge how much time I need to spend in the meat and potatoes of this all, and how many questions. There tends to be a lot of questions, but so far there's not a ton. So if you do have questions, go ahead and enter those in. All right, now I want to move this conversation into something that I see a need for. Now I go to author conferences, all sorts of conferences all the time, and I talk to many authors all over the world. And far and wide, most authors do not pitch what they do to me. Like when we're talking, they're not pitching what they do very well. Whether they're an author, speaker, or coach, whatever they're doing, they do not do it well. And I always feel the need to talk about the elevator pitch. Now, I'm going to talk about, I went in depth in this in our last webinar, and I'll shoot a link to that if anybody wants to talk about that. I just want to give Jake and Joe a chance to add to kind of what I say. Now, for authors specifically, there's a few things that you need to take into consideration when you're forming an elevator pitch. Now, an elevator pitch is just a quick synopsis of what you do, what your book's about, what you speak about, whatever it is, a quick synopsis that needs to be short. And we're talking literally 30 to 60 seconds, something very short that the idea came from is if you were in an elevator with somebody that you could talk to them and just tell them what you do. Now, the purpose of the elevator pitch is not to get a sale on the spot. That's pretty hard to do in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. But it is there to make an influence, right, to impact this person so they'll go look you up. So that either they're going to ask more questions if you have more time while you're standing next to them. They'll either ask questions or want to go look you up. So there's a couple of things you need to do. You got to keep it short, but you got to give, after you give a quick synopsis, you need to compare your book or whatever you do to two famous people. So I write a mystery series like similar to Lee Child's Jack Reacher and James Patterson's Alex Cross. Something that you got to be, and it's got to be real, that you're comparing two real famous people, okay? That so they can relate to what your work is like. You know, if you write something similar to Harry Potter, then you can say it's kind of like a mix between J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Divergent series, whatever. I don't know. Just to give you an idea. So you got to compare it to two famous people, and then you got to leave them something memorable so that they'll remember you, whatever that's going to be. So maybe it's a name of a character, or if it's something that happens in the book, a twist, whatever it is, that they'll remember you. So they'll go look you up afterwards and go buy the book you, whatever it is that you're doing. And so in this case, like so here, there's a famous author, his name is Joe Conrath. I use Joe for all of my examples because he's awesome. But he writes a detective mystery series, and his protagonist's name is Jacqueline Daniels. It's a woman, but everyone calls her Jack for short. So her name is Jack Daniels, like the drink. And so that is very memorable. So he always hit, if I were Joe, I haven't heard Joe's elevator pitch. He's a master at it. He's the one who taught me this, by the way. I was doing elevator pitches, and he's like, yeah, you got to include these kinds of things. He's the kind of the person that taught me this. And so he's always nailing, hey, my character's name is Jack Daniels, and all my books are named after alcoholic drinks. Bloody Mary, whiskey sour, whatever it is. And that's very memorable. So in your elevator pitch, please craft something that it's memorable for that person to remember. Now, Jake, Joe, what do you guys think? Is there anything that we're missing out here? Anything that we need to add to that? Joe?
I love it. Keep it short. Leave them something memorable. And I really love comparing it to somebody like that hasn't even occurred to me. And that's brilliant.
Very powerful. It's very powerful. Yeah.
I will add, there's two parts to my elevator pitch. Can I give you them?
Sure.
So the super short answer, so what do? I say, I'm an author and speaker on leadership and success. I don't define myself as a speaker, because anybody can be a speaker. Once I wrote my book, I changed everything to I open with, I'm an author. Sometimes I don't even say speaker, because naturally, if you've written a book, you're an expert on something. So say, I'm an author and speaker on leadership and success. And then if somebody says, oh, what do you speak about? Then I just say, in the 8 years after college, I went to 30 countries on 6 continents. I came home to St. Louis and started my business in speaking and entertainment. Now I speak at schools and organizations on leadership and success. And that's just boom.
Short, sweet, to the point.
One thing that I liked about that is that you said one thing, and then you give them the opportunity to ask more. Because if they're not interested, they're not going to ask more. And if they are interested, they will ask more. Yeah. And I think, keeping it short and allowing them to ask more. If they want more, they'll tell you more. But you don't want to feel like you have to tell them everything. One thing I wanted to say and add to this is I'm guessing a lot of the people watching this do more than one thing. You probably write more than one style of book. You probably have your hands in a couple different things, because most people do in these days. We have so many options that many people do many things, myself included. And so rather than telling people everything that you do, try to make an educated guess beforehand on what's going to resonate with this person, and just focus on that. Focus on one thing. And if they're going to ask you more, then you can say more. But focus on one thing. What is it that you want to communicate to them? And if they want more, they'll ask more. But keep it simple. Allow them to ask more.
That's fantastic tips. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I'm just checking questions here. Okay, so we guys are good. So I wanted to move in this. So what is the best way that you guys have found? Like, what do authors and speakers and coaches, anybody out there, what are some tips for them to influence and move and so to have their message resonate with the audience? What are some things that you guys do to get that? Now, let me tell you one thing that I've seen both of you speak, and these guys are both amazing. All right, they're very good at what they do. And what I like most about them, because a lot of speakers get this wrong, is that they are themselves. Jake, when he speaks, it's just Jake Ballentine. When Joe speaks, it's just Joe Fingerhut doing their thing. They are not trying to be somebody else. They're not trying to be a famous author, Jack Canfield. They're not trying to be Tony Robbins, a famous speaker. They're just being themselves. And what I see so many times, and it drives me absolutely nuts, is that there are people out there trying to be someone else. And we just want you to be you. Like, we don't want to see the next Les Brown or the next Tony Robbins, or we don't want you to be J.K. Rowling. We want you to be you when you speak. And so I see you guys do this. Is there anything else that you guys think that, that authors can do to really help motivate, influence their audience, make their audience passionate about their message? What are some tips?
I'll go first on this. For me, it's about knowing your material and communicating, not about being the great speaker. And I think being a good speaker, obviously that's great, but I spend a lot more time working on the speaker than working on the speech. And some people are different than me. Some people are more scripted. I don't really like that. I don't like doing that. I don't like listening to it. I like people who are communicating. So
Jake's just being himself when he speaks.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it. Exactly what you're talking. And so I say, when I'm preparing for, let's say, okay, at the end of April, I'm speaking at an event where I'm doing a new keynote, a keynote that I haven't really done before. I'm spending a lot more time understanding my material than I am spending on what exactly I'm going to say at this time and at this time. It's more about knowing the material and then communicating. One other thing that I do every time I speak, as long as I have the opportunity, sometimes I don't have the opportunity, but now I have a lot of experience. I've done hundreds of speaking engagements, so I'm more comfortable on stage than maybe someone who's new. But I go out and I talk to the people who are in the hallways. I talk to them. If I can get there an hour before, I like to get there and talk to the people and say, hey, what are you looking for in this conference? Hey, if you could speak to this audience, because you know this group more than I do. I've just been here for a few minutes. If you could talk to this audience, what do you think the most important thing to say is? What do you think your biggest issue is with these people, with the organization? What are you looking to get out of this conference? What do you like about speakers? What do you don't like? And I go from, there's little groups talking to each other. I go from group to group to group, and I try to have 10 conversations before I go on stage. And so I've found as much as I prepare, I've found times where I prepare everything, where I'm totally ready, I have everything prepared, and then I usually throw it all out the window as soon as I have those conversations, because I'm focused on communicating and not on doing a rote presentation.
That's beautiful. I talked about being yourself. Jake just says, know your audience. And if you can know your audience even when you're there to get to know them even better, then you can cater the message to them. That's really great ways to move and influence that audience. Joe, what can you add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jake, it's crucial. The best experiences I've had at events is when I got on a plane, I got to the event, I spoke, and I left. When I have spent time before and then after, the people are just like, Joe, you're a part of our family now. We can't wait to have you back. So that certainly helps. My 2 tips, one is to have fun. And you don't have to tell jokes or juggle or do magic tricks, but people can tell when you're having fun. And when you are having fun, it feels good to look at somebody enjoying themselves. If you look like, man, I hate speaking, I don't like this material, I can't believe I'm up here, people are uncomfortable. They aren't going to want to learn more, speak more, be around you more. So my biggest thing is just to have fun when I speak. It might be the way you tell a story or a punchline or whatever, and it might help to get coaching if you are like, I'm not fun enough, because that can help. But then one of the most powerful tools that I utilize that basically changed my delivery on stage, and I paid a lot of money for this, but I will share it because it's so important. And when I got this advice, the speaker, but the coach who told me was like, you will never look at a speaker again. You can tell a story, you can tell a powerful story, but at the end of that story, if you do not shine the spotlight on the audience and apply it to them, it will have no meaning. I'm a sports fan. if I got to see Michael Jordan speak, it would just be the most amazing thing. But he could still tell a story and be like, okay, cool. It's probably going to be one that I've heard before. But when he turns around and says, and this is how it applies to you, then I'm just like, oh, now it's my turn. Okay, yeah, talk to me, Michael Jordan. And that's what I do. I tell a story, I give a lesson, and then I'm just like, okay, this is how it applies to your life.
Oh, it's beautiful stuff. So you authors out there, apply these kinds of ideas for when you're anytime you're in front of any kind of an audience, whether you're speaking to them or if you're just at a book signing, you're doing readings, whatever it is. Be yourself, have fun, what Joe says, apply the message back to the audience, and then know your audience, what Jake was telling you. Like these are just amazing tips to help you craft when you're in front of people speaking about your book. Now we're running out of time here. I want to give some time for you guys into in the live Q&A. I did want to thank Jake and Joe. You guys are awesome. Like seriously, your friendship to me is amazing. Like just being able to know you guys, and like Jake's known Joe for a long time, and I've known Jake since he was a teenager, right? But I just got to know Joe, and we hung out for, I don't know what it was, 3 or 4 days.
4 days.
Every day. I mean, we were out to dinner. We just spent the whole day together at the summit, and like he just feels like a lifelong friend. And we got so many great, like just being able to get ideas off of each other. I'm like, and for example, now that Joe's in my own personal network, now I got something came up, something crossed my plate, and I go, Joe would be perfect for this. And now I'm shooting Joe an opportunity to go on a cruise and to entertain some people for 5 days, right? And because he was in my network. And so the point I'm trying to make here is that you have to get out and meet people, other authors, other speakers, other coaches, wherever you're doing out there. Because when they're in your network, you help build each other up. Here's a quick example. Joe Conrath, famous author, he has Lee Child, who is a megastar author, give blurbs on the back of his covers on his books every time. And I asked Joe one time, I'm like, how did you get Lee Child to do this? And he goes, oh, Lee? Oh, he's awesome. He's one of my drinking buddies. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, we were coming up at the same time. We would meet each other at these conferences, and they became friends. And now that Lee's a megastar, he's doing all of Joe's blurbs, right? And so these are the kinds of things that when we network, we're able to shoot each other business, help each other anyway. And so I cannot tell you how important it is just to get out there, go to conferences, go to writers' workshops, whatever it is, and just meet other people within your communities, wherever you are, and form these relationships and these bonds because they're incredibly important. All right, let's get to the live Q&A. Go ahead and ask your questions. I'll shoot it up to you guys. Okay. Joe says, what's up? Joe Fingerhut tells me what's up in the question. All right.
Oh, that was from 1 hour ago.
I want to say one thing about what you said with connecting.
Okay.
Joe and I have shared a lot of business with each other. We're doing a lot of things. You know, he was the MC at my event, and he's going to be the MC at every one of my events moving forward. And but the point is that neither Joe or I were anyone when we met each other, and like we weren't. Neither of us had, maybe we'd had a handful of speaking engagements. Now hundreds of them later, and now we have real careers. Now, had I been a brand new speaker and I met Joe, I would want to get to know Joe for the purpose of furthering my career. But when we met, we were just friends. And the point is you don't know who's sitting next to you. Don't devalue when you're at an event the guy who you're sitting next to, who maybe he's not anyone yet, but you're going to see that they can go somewhere. And to be honest, I knew that Joe, hey, out of all these people who are here, I can tell Joe's actually going to do something where that person probably not. But point is that you don't have to just make relationships with people who are already successfy.
That's a good point.
Build relationships now, and they're gonna really mean something for your career a couple years down the road.
Your resource.
Yeah, it's a great point. I meet amazing authors, and it's one of my most favorite parts of my job. I mean, with PublishDrive, but as an author and a person, just a human being, I love talking to people and meeting new people, and I come across amazing people. And I am always, especially if we become friends and we become tight, I am always, when I come across things that happen, like for instance, Joe, and trying to get him booked on this cruise, right? And I'm like, Joe would be perfect at that. And I would never have known that had I not met him. Like, it would never cross my mind. And I go, oh, but I met this guy. So please get out there and make those relationships. Reach out to people. It's my favorite thing to do is just meet other authors, other speakers, whatever you're doing out there. Okay, question, Teresa, is there audio for this event? So,
Yes.
Well, there's the video, but if you want a specific audio only, we are going to put it into in a podcast, but we're not launching that until probably next month. So it will be there. All of these backlog webinars and everything will be in simply audio as well. I hope that's the question that you meant by that. Jenny asks, hi Adam, thanks for doing this. I'm traditionally published, but very interested in building my speaking side of things. Do you think this webinar is still applicable for me? I write novels.
Yes.
Absolutely 100%. And I hope throughout this thing, I think she asked this question early on, but Jenny, absolutely. You're traditionally published. It doesn't matter if you're self-published, traditionally published, or you're a hybrid. All of these things matter because speaking is very important. Public speaking, it's an important part of a professional's life. And so whether you're just trying to speak in front of a couple of people or you're moving a whole audience, all of these things help you sell books. And so, we've talked about the elevator pitch. We've talked about if you want to be a speaker, or we're talked about things that you could say and do when you're just at simple book signings and author related events. So all of these things are important. And so I hope you can see that and that you've grasped that, because absolutely, whether you're traditionally published, self-published, or a mix between all of that in the hybrid arena, then yes, absolutely. Great question. Jerry asked, those of you who haven't participated in Adam's PublishDrive seminar, I strongly urge you to view it. I watched, I signed up, I'm loving it. Jerry, you're the man. Thank you. Woo, good praise from Jerry. Thanks, brother. Let me see here. Oh, Teresa says she was early on, she was unable to hear the presenters. I hope you heard us.
Maybe no one heard it.
That would have been really sad if no one heard this, because it was amazing. I'm not muted, cannot hear. Could you please give me my, Rudiger, I hope that got worked out for you. Oh man. Okay. Ted says, Joe is the man. Joe, you got a shout out from Ted.
Ted.
Liana.
Which is good, because that means we know that
somebody says it. Oh. Joe says, Ted says, sorry, in the form of a question. Is Joe the man? Yes. Oh, that is so funny. Okay, Diana says, Adam, you rock. Diana, you rock. You rock. Okay, quick story. I met Diana last year when I was at Book Expo America, and we had a little event going on after the fact, and she's from Upper West Side. Upper East Side. Upper West. I can't remember Diana, Upper West Side or the East Side. Anyways, she's amazing. She does a thing that I'm trying so hard for her to write a book about, where she goes, she's written several posts about this and put them on LinkedIn, where she goes around and talks to the homeless people of New York, and she asks them their name, and she wants to know their story, and then she gives them something like a toothbrush or something to help them. And her posts are amazing. Diana Barnett, search her out on LinkedIn. She's written posts. I want her to write a book about this, because it is amazing, humanizing these people that are down on their luck, and they have amazing stories. Joe, did you have something?
Can I jump in then, piggybacking on that? Ted Frigilana, who just commented, is a dear friend of mine. Like you just said, Diana, I want her to write a book. Ted has overcome cancer. He was named U.S. News and World Report college senior of the year at one point, and then he became a teacher. And he would write songs like when Party in the USA was popular. He would make the lyrics and he'd print out and he'd do party in psychology, like it's a party in psychology. And I'm just like, dude, you can do this. Like, speaking off it, like, Ted's awesome.
Nice, Ted. You're the man, Ted. Shout out to Ted. Okay, here we go. Back to Jenny. She says, you guys are awesome. Hey, you're awesome. Everybody, let's give Jenny an awesome. 1, 2, 3. You're awesome. All right. Okay, she says, if you can take this cue question instead. I write thrillers about women who triumph over bad guys. Great. Love those. And my talks are about life as a woman today, sticking to a dream, how to keep going in the face of adversity. I've done some paid speaking gigs, but nowhere as many as I'd like. So my question is how to find venues. Thanks. And I think we touched upon a little bit about how do you go out and find these booking gigs. And Joe hit it right. He's a master at this. He just finds out where people who are speaking to similar topics to you, Jenny, are speaking at, and then reaches out to those organizers and sets that up, you know, even if it's a year or two down the road or whatever, but gets in them so they know who he is. And so if you could do the same, I would look for people who are similar to you, speaking on this is a very important topic, by the way, an awesome topic that needs to be spoken about more. And you just reach out to those organizations, just follow speakers that are doing that, and then reach out to them. And usually it could start out with just an email. Hey, I'm Jenny. This is what I do. A quick, short, brief message. Are you hiring? Jake talks about this a lot. Are you booking speaking gigs? Are you booking speakers and that kind of stuff? And so just open up that dialogue with them.
A lot of people say that they're not booking as many speaking engagements they want, and what I'm hearing is they're most of the time, I don't know about you, but most of the time what they're saying is I want them to come to me. Like, it's just not happening. And this career doesn't just happen. You got to go out and make it happen. So go and contact people, go and do the work, put the work in. If you want to get speaking engagements, you need to go out and get them. You need to go out and ask. You need to put in the work. If you build it, they will come is only true in a movie where dead baseball players walk out of the corn.
Great movie, by the way.
Good movie.
Field of Dreams.
Good movie.
Kevin Costner.
But when it comes to speaking engagements, it's not how it is.
It's different.
You gotta go out and talk. You gotta go out and ask.
Great question, Jenny. I hope that helps. And please reach out after the fact. I mean, I'll send you an email. I'll send you these guys' contact information. Just so you know, too, Jake does a lot of coaching, and he helps authors and speakers and coaches move to the next level. And it's amazing what he does for these people. I mean, he works with authors. He'll work with comedians. He'll work with all sorts of entertainers, all sorts of people, and has this coaching program. So it's definitely something, if that's something you want to do and you really want to boost your speaking stuff, you can reach out to Jake and he can give you some more info.
Yeah, real quick plug for Jake. If you're on this webinar, like Jake is, there's no one better at providing value. And yes, he coaches, and yes, it's for a fee, but like that's like a second layer thing. Like Jake has so much content that is just waiting for you. Speakers, Authors, and Coaches Network on Facebook. That's free. There's so many people in there with integrity and sincerity and the desire to connect and to help. And it's just out there. And there's podcasts connected to it. So if you're on this and you're not connected with that, do it like immediately after this.
Thanks, Joe.
Jake's the man. Joe's the man. You guys are the man.
Woody's the man.
Woody's the man.
All right, here we go.
Do they call you Woody here? Or are you
Oh,
Adam?
sorry. Yeah, so
Yeah,
professionally at work, I go by.
Adam is
Everyone at PublishDrive knows my nickname is Woody. So my nickname is Woody. Even my mother calls me Woody. And in fact, I'm writing my pen name for a lot of a new series of children's books is Woody Woods.
I saw your name on a list for something, and I seriously, I've known you for, at this point, it was like years. And I saw it, and I said, who's Adam Woods?
That's usually how it goes, actually. Most people, unless it's more of a professional setting, like at the bank, know me as most people don't know me as App. It's actually Woody. I'm switching a lot of my branding just to Woody Woods in a lot of my writing, especially in this younger series. Yeah. But even my mom calls me. Everybody calls me Woody. It's always been like that. My older brothers were also called Woody when they were kids, but grew out of it. My mom called them Woody because of our last name Woods. And then I was the baby. I was the youngest, and so it stuck. I've been Woody. Yeah, still here. Okay, here we go. Moving on. Jerry asks, he says, I've spoken to perhaps 25 groups from Roanoke, Virginia to Romania. Ooh, awesome. Only one presentation was a paid speech. Okay, this happens a lot. Don't worry. Okay. Most were civic organizations. What are resources for finding conferences and organizations that pay for speakers with contact information? You guys want to touch on that?
This is something that a lot of my clients talk about is like, hey, I'm doing gigs, but they're all free. When it comes down to it, you need to fish in a pond where there are paid speaking engagements. And so service and civic organizations, they don't pay their speakers, except maybe their national conferences and state conferences and things like that. But They just don't have a budget. You can't squeeze a budget out of people who don't have a budget. So if you want, there's two different forms of speaking. There's either speaking for marketing, which can be very profitable. Truth be told, I don't do that much fee speaking anymore. Most of my speaking now is I'm speaking for free for the ability to be able to be in front of my ideal audience. And truth is I make more money now as a speaker speaking for free than I did as a paid speaker. So it can still be profitable, absolutely. But if you want to be a paid speaker, if you want to collect a fee, then you need to go to people who have a budget for speakers and just do the same thing Joe was talking about. Look for people that you know are doing this. Find out where they're speaking. Every market's a little bit different, so I can't tell specifics for you because every market is different where those organizations are. But just do your homework. Think about yourself as a detective. You're just searching for those people who have budgets, those organizations who have budgets, and that's who you want to get connected with. Once you learn it, once you figure it out, you'll know exactly what they'll look like. You'll know exactly where to look and what they are looking for, and tailor what you're doing for the people who have the budget.
Beautiful. Okay, moving on. Next question. Thank you. I hope that helped, Jerry. Hey, shout out to Joe again. Diana says, wow, great tip, Joe. I don't know what that was in reference to, but
one sentence to what Jake just said.
Okay, go ahead.
Everything that he said is totally on point, but also define yourself as a professional speaker and tell everybody. If people think you speak for free, they're not going to pay you. If they think you're a professional speaker, they're either going to pay you or tell you about somebody who can pay you.
Great tip. Thanks. You got another shout out, Joe. Everybody loves Joe. Okay, I'd like to ask Adam. Oh, okay. As a fiction writer, what are your topics? What do you speak on? That's a great question. So this all started because I wrote a book called Conquer Your Dragons. And it's a children's story that I wrote for my children. And that they were the audience that I was looking out for, because right now I write a lot to my children because I want the lessons I want them to learn, I write about. And so it's funny, I was looking back at a lot of the stuff that I haven't published that I've written, and I've gone, oh yeah, this is what happened in my life or in my kids' life, and that I want them to know. And it's just all of these messages. So basically that's how it started. I write fiction, and I wrote this children's story. It was about this boy who falls asleep one night, has a dream, and encounters a dragon. And the dragon's very intimidating. It's the mean dragon. It's not the friendly one we see in other media today. This is a mean guy, and he wants to kill this boy. And really, the boy comes to the conclusion that the only thing he can do is put on his armor and fight the dragon. And then they have this really sweet battle scene, and then he wakes up from his dream and realizes to him what the dragon represents. And this is all done in rhyme. It's kind of a fun story. And so when Jake saw the story, he said, hey, I think you should do something on this. This is a really powerful message. And so if you're writing fiction, whatever the topic is on, right, you could speak on that. Even if you're writing mystery thrillers, if you're writing romance, whatever it is, if you want to include, hold on, I'm just making sure. If you want to include, sorry, someone messaged me. I just want to make sure it has nothing to do with the broadcast, like something went wrong. But so if you're writing fiction, you can tailor your message if you're going to speak about it based on something in your book, something that happened in your book. Whether you're writing about, when maybe about what Jenny was talking about. Jenny was talking about, something to do with women overcoming the problems in this fictional story. You could speak about that. I've seen some authors speak about, I forgot the guy's name. He's really popular, but I saw him speak, and he's amazing. And he talked about something because he grew up in Compton. He's an Asian guy. I cannot remember his name. I want to reference him, but he writes a story, a fictional story, about what this black detective, an African American detective in Compton, right? Because but this guy his parents were Japanese, and so he's this Asian ancestry growing up in Compton, in LA, the LA area. And so he writes, and he tailored his message to things that happened when he grew up. And it was fascinating, right? And so as a fiction writer, whatever the message is that you're trying to share, like in my story, the dragon represented our fears and doubts, our anguish, our pain, our sorrows, the obstacles, the trials of life. It represented all of those things. And so my message is tailored to that. So whatever you write about, And it doesn't matter the genre. If it's sci-fi, you're going to have protagonists whose lives are in shambles, but there's character arcs. There's things that are happening. They're overcoming obstacles and trials. And there's some kind of conflict that you write in your stories, and they're overcoming that. And so your message can be tailored to anything that you write about. And so take a look at what you write if you're writing fiction, and then tailor your message to that. So then you can sell books. Now, for me, it's easy because Conquer Your Dragons is the name of the book, and it's the name of the keynote I do, and I share the book. And so I share that because it's a children's story, so it's super short, right? And there's cool illustrations, and even adults like illustrations. And so I actually share the story, whether I'm speaking to a crowd of youth or a crowd of adults. I share the story because it is the point of my whole message, right? What that dragon represents. And so, and then it's easy for me to sell books. So, so try that. I hope that helps. Do you guys want to add anything, or can I move on?
You're good.
Okay, moving on. How do you base speaking? Okay, so same kind of question. Phyllis asked that. Thanks, Phyllis. Joe, how long was the process of writing your book? What steps did you follow to get published? What about editors, etc.? And I can answer a lot of this as well. But Joe, your buddy Ted's asking you the question.
Just short answer. I hired a coach. I work with a professional. It's really hard to sit down and just like start this process. Like writing a book is not simple. It can be simple, but it's just when you're working with people who have done it before and who do this for a living, it is worth the investment. I know, Adam, you're in this field. I can tell you, I spent a lot of money to get my book into the world, to create it. I'm very proud of it. And the grand total now that I've spent on it is free because I got it. And I've made everything back that I spent. I basically made a book for free. So it's worth it.
I just want everyone to know I pay twice for free. I pay twice for free. I love free. I'm just kidding. Joke, stupid joke. No God. All right, here we go. Moving on. So also on top of that, if you have any questions about if you're new to the industry or you're new to self-publishing, there's a lot of traditional published authors who move to self-publishing and don't know that side of the industry. If you have any questions about it, I am the VP of Biz Dev at PublishDrive, but I am also an author coach. And this is what I do. I guide authors through this process. It's free to do. That's pretty awesome. We have lots of conversations about it. However, the one stipulation is that we want you to use PublishDrive to get your ebooks out. So not a lot to ask, but if you need help with editing, with the editors, I give you all of the tips, anything with book covers, all of that kind of stuff. Anything that you need throughout the publishing process, reach out. I'm happy to help. All right, moving on. Okay, so Phyllis asks, info for traditionally published authors. Many publishers have whole departments dedicated to speaking. They are called speaking bureaus. Oh, so Phyllis actually comes from a very famous big publishing house, and now she's in the self-publishing world. That's great to know. Thank you. So many publishers have whole departments dedicated to speaking. They're called speaking bureaus. It's very interesting.
Real quick, a lot of people will, and her situation may be different there, and if you got a lot of good things going, that might be different. But a lot of people want to connect with a speakers bureau because they think it means that I don't have to do any work. And unless you have something big to offer, that speakers bureau, they're not going to do much for you. So just for people who are thinking, oh, speakers bureau, I should be a part of one of those. Unless you're really in demand, they're usually not going to do much for you. So you gotta do it on your own, and then you'll have a speakers bureau come to you and then do the work for you.
Love that.
Hey guys, I have to run soon. I hope you stay on and answer everybody's questions. Is there anything that you need from me before we sign?
You're the man. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Round of applause for Joe.
Yay,
Joe. We're going to finish answering the questions. Go ahead and drop off. Thank you. This went longer than I thought. Sorry, guys, but I want to answer all the questions. So, Joe, have a great day. Thank you.
All right, guys. Talk soon.
See you, Joe.
Okay, Jake, in your Facebook group, this is from Diana. Will I be able to get ideas of where to start on my speaking journey? My book will be published in May, but I have no idea where to start.
Absolutely.
Tons
of free content in there. Yeah, just look up Speakers, Authors, and Coaches Network on Facebook, and you'll find it.
Sandra asks, thank you for the webinar. I've learned so much. Do you recommend that authors attend a professional group like Toastmasters?
Toastmasters is really good if you are uncomfortable speaking. Toastmasters is not about how to book speaking engagements. It's about the art of speaking, not the business of speaking. So if you are, if you're not comfortable on stage, it's a great place to go.
Great question, Sandra. Thank you. How should a first-time speaker charge? This is from TL Champion.
This is a question that I can't really answer, and the reason why is because it completely depends on the market that you're in. And I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but I mean, there's markets that have very little money, and then there's markets that have tons of money. So it really depends on who you're speaking to. And so the best place to go is just to look at, okay, where do I want to speak? What are those types of speakers charging? Learn what is standard for that industry. So there is no speaking standard across the board. There's standards for each and every industry. So I would need to know more to be able to give you a specific answer.
Yeah, if you if you know who your market is and who you're trying to target and stuff like that, if you go to the Speakers, Authors, Coaches Network and just ask people,
say, hey, I speak about this, and what are you charging? What should I say?
And then tons of people will respond and give you lots of great ideas. Yeah, so I would try that. It's on Facebook. It's called the Speakers, Authors, Coaches Network. It's a Facebook group, and Jake will let you in if you're nice.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been able to hear this the whole time.
Good,
thanks,
good.
thank you.
Heard everything.
I heard everything. Great content. Thank you. Oh, Diana's from the Upper West Side. I knew it. I've been to her house. She cooked me breakfast one time. She's a chef too. She's coming out with a chef book. She's amazing. Diana, you're amazing. Your dog's amazing. Husband's amazing. All right. Tell me your name. It's an Insta. Oh, I had mentioned Diana, who's from the Upper West Side of New York. She asked about. I had mentioned that she does something with the homeless. It's called Tell Me Your Name, and I hope it's on Instagram. It's on LinkedIn. She writes all of these posts, and I hope she writes a book about it because it's amazing. I had a question for Jake. Oh, thanks. Oh, that's from a previous answer. Okay, thank you. I wish these can go to webinars a little better about the organization of these questions. Okay, how should speakers charge versus getting paid from the organization buying books? Oh, this is back to the charging question.
Yeah, so with the book organizations, so usually I do like a little bit of a discount when they buy a bulk set of the books. So what you would want to do when talking about that is basically say, okay, well, if you buy this amount of books, then I'll come and speak for free. That's a decision you need to make based on what you feel is worthwhile. I do kind of try to be vague with those answers to those questions because pricing and what something's worth to you is so relative based on where you're at and based on the industry. So we really need to know more about the industry, but what I can tell you is speaking can be very lucrative as a speaker. They'll pay for your flight, they'll pay for your hotel, they'll give you a speaking fee, and it's not like, we're talking thousands is what you should be getting paid as a speaking fee on top of, thousands with an S. And now that can range huge, that can range greatly depending on the market that you're in. But we're not talking about like many, book signings and speaker honorariums that are, when you hear the word honorarium, expect something like $200. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something that is going to be worth it for you to go fly somewhere, speak there, and feel like, hey, that was worth my while, where you should be getting thousands for your speaking engagements.
Great question. Evelyn says, thanks guys, fun and inspiration. The three of you are the men. Hey, Evelyn, hey, yes, thanks. Inspiration, thank you, Evelyn. Okay, Angelo, I'm a person who became world famous back in 1985. Oh, nice.
Cool.
I turned 6 that year.
I was born that year.
I turned 6 that year.
Yeah.
I'll be 40 this year. Anyways, okay. I'm a person who became world famous back in 85. I've written a book about my exploits that was published 4 years ago. I've done hundreds of interviews on radio, live TV, newspapers, etc. I've never been on a speaking tour. Is it too late for me to start?
No, of course not.
Never. Absolutely not.
Not at all.
No. Angelo, do it. Go speak. Start speaking gigs. It doesn't matter if this happened to you back in 1985. It doesn't matter. No. Whatever. Just do it. Do it. Do it. Jenny, thank you guys. And if you come to Thriller Fest, I'll introduce you to Lee Child.
Sweet.
Wait, am I going to Thriller Fest this year? I got to look at Jenny. I got to look at my travel schedule. I would love to meet Lee Child. Jack Reacher is one of my favorite book series and protagonists of all time. I'm a big reader. Love it. And I would take you up on that offer, Jenny. Wow. Okay. Billy Sear, hey, great guys, great stuff. Quick question: 300,000 words for one or two books and self-publish. I think he's asking, is 300 words?
I think he's saying 300,000 words.
300.
Should that be one book or two books?
I would say two books.
I don't know anything about it.
So
it sounds like a lot of words.
That's a ton of words. To give you some perspective, I just went. So young adult authors tend to write anywhere between 45,000 to 70,000 words in a book. Mm-hmm. Novels are obviously a lot more than that. Epic fantasies can reach that 300,000 word mark. A lot of the Harry Potter, I mean, these rules are broken all the time. It just depends on, your situation. I know J.K. Rowling started out, I think Harry Potter 1 was 70,000, and then they started moving up, and I think her longest book was book 5, and I think it was pretty high up there. So I mean, it's a hard question, Billy, to answer. Whether
how many words does Les Mis have in?
I mean, it just kind of at this point, I don't know enough about your book. If you write epic fantasies, I mean, it might still be a little long.
If it's an informational book, it's way too long.
Oh, yeah. He writes fiction.
I assumed as much.
If it was nonfiction, it would be way too long. But gosh, I would say short. I would lean on shorter is better. But I mean, I would have your editor look at it and say, hey, does this need to be split into two books? So it's hard to say unless we know everyone's the right situation. So sorry, man, I wish I could better answer that for you, but at this point, I'm always leaning towards a little shorter, so I would say 2 books, but that's me personally. Your situation might not be the best fit for your book. And so I would ask some friends, ask an editor, some professional who know your book, and then ask them if that's the right move. Sandra says, brilliant. How your stories messages meshed. Thank you. She's just giving us. Thank you, Sandra, for giving us the shout out. You're great. Thank you for attending. Diana says, got to go. Thanks. Amazing session. You're amazing, Diana. Is there a humor fest?
There should be.
There should be.
Humor writers.
Yeah, there should. Okay.
That's the next one.
Oh,
next question.
Or for humor writers. I don't know of any humor fest. I don't know if this is if this was just a joke or if you're actually serious about this, because we had mentioned Thriller Fest before. And I actually got to look into that because I write a lot of comedy into my stuff, and I'm working on a comedy anthology. So if anybody out there wants to partner with this, it'll be super fun. Reach out to me. But I'm going to write a comedy anthology, but I'm not familiar with any kind of conferences that are just for humor only.
It sounds fun.
It would be amazing. I like to laugh. So anyways, hey, that's it for the questions, guys. You guys are amazing. Check us. You can check out PublishDrive at PublishDrive.com. You can go to JakeBallentine.com. You can go to the Speakers, Authors, Coaches Network on Facebook, and you can go to JoeFingerhut.com as well if you want to. If you want to reach out to Joe. Sorry, someone just threw in another question. Oh, okay. So TL was asking if there was anything about Humor Fest. I'll have to look into that. I haven't personally been to any kind of festivals that are humorous, that are focused only on comedy. I'm sure they're out there. There's like conferences for anything, for everything. And so I'll have to look into it. Not sure yet. Anyways, guys, thank you. Here at PublishDrive, we want you to write more, publish more, sell more, and worry less. Thanks, guys. Look out for this recording and all of the other things I talked about. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.